Welcome, everyone. It's September the 9th here at our club, and we're here for our bi-monthly Zoom meeting. Grace was with us, but she opted to bail out on us to hear the Apple iPhone 16 announcement and everything. It's, I'm sure, better than 15 or anything previous. That's what they do. So, but we have a couple. Does anyone else have any videos to bring in? Wendell, you have something?
I've got a remake of the one
Okay.
last week about the SIG
Great.
middle pitch.
Well,
4.5 minutes or so.
that's okay. You get this loaded over. All right, so before the class started here, we were talking a little bit about audio and compression and what it does to your audio track and everything. And I was explaining to the group that if you have a loud sound coming through, in my case, when I did the canoe video, every time my canoe paddle hit the canoe, it gave a loud thump. And through compression, I was able to minimize that. And so it was just taking the, picking a decimal volume. I think what I did on that one was a plus 10 was the limit. So anything over a plus 10, it will basically just crash it down and make it no louder than a plus 10. So it's a good tool to have in our bag of tricks, especially for audio. So let's start here. Wendell, let's start with you. So this is your remake of the, tell us about it.
Yeah, it's revision of the thing I put together for Tom to use in the promotion for SIGs here in the club. And I incorporated, I think, the major comments from last time. I'm still not quite happy with some of the narration that I put in. And there's a couple of places I can compress a few seconds out of it, but otherwise, if it's working good, I'll go from there and make improvements.
All right.
This is a demonstration of converting digital color photos to black and white in order to produce more dramatic images. Many of these adjustments can be used to improve color photos also, but in these examples, removing color helps emphasize the subjects of the photos. Adobe Lightroom was used for these examples, but similar results can be achieved with other image processing programs. So let's get started. Before and after views. Converting to black and white. Perspective correction. Cropping to emphasize the main subject. Minor exposure adjustments. Darkening sky for drama. Darken small area of sky. And it is complete. Cropping to focus on the area where the hills on the left meet the hill on the right. Leveling the horizon. darkening the blues in the scene. Using gradient masks to darken top and bottom of the image to help focus on the hills. Adding a green tint for a unique look. And it is complete. Black and white works well for faces of people. Using a mask to select the background for darkening. Adjusting the mask behind the man's neck. Darkening the background. Darkening the face. And it is complete.
What'd you think?
I think the first text slide right at the end, the first one was a little short. I didn't have time to read it.
Yeah, oh, okay, going back to your.
Yeah, you gotta stretch it out.
Yep. Oh,
Yep.
yeah.
So what'd you think about the audio?
Oh,
It's the echo. So what are you using? What are you using for your microphone?
I just, plug the microphone into the laptop, and use a Windows sound recording. And put them together and then edit them in eventually come up. And,
Not a little echoey.
yeah.
yes, well, I don't know why it was done all the same way as the rest.
Oh,
Maybe there was some background noise from that.
I didn't pick on background noise, but the echo.
Yeah.
You're in a large room.
There's
oh,
like,
yeah, it's like.
Gotta go under the blanket, under the hood.
Or go in a closet.
Yeah.
That's-
So
That's what it sounds.
did you put together the whole video first and then added the audio?
yes. Yes, I had all the video and, the title, most of the titles, and then added the video, and I put, in the three sections, I put a video track for each section. So if I missed the one at the front, it wouldn't.
Yeah, that's good thinking. So it's good to, even copy that first, when you go to work on it, you have your original video or audio, make a copy of it, do all your work on the copy and everything. Because if something drastically happens to it, then you still have your original to go back to.
Oh, okay, my copy, you just highlight it all and.
Copy,
Copy and.
paste.
On another, track or something.
Yep. And then you can mute, or when you get to your final product and everything, you could delete the original and everything and just use the one that you edited. But I would suggest going under the hood or under the blanket or into your, walk-in closet or something to do the audio, because it does have very much of an echo. I'm trying to figure out myself how to eliminate echo. I've watched several videos on YouTube over the weekend because I have, when I interviewed my cousins, there's some echo that I'm concerned with that I want to try to reduce. I haven't found one of these YouTube, you know, they say to reduce echo and I follow it and I'm like, yeah, that doesn't sound any different. You know, so I haven't really found what it is or how I can reduce that and everything. But if you go into your closet or something and redo the audio, that should pretty much eliminate the echo sound.
You know, the good thing is though, from the, putting it as part of the club's overall marketing effort, I have Ashley for their happy voice. And so, but now I have the words to be able to give to Ashley and everything, to do the AI voice, to go along with the images and everything. And the explanation, that you gave is, you know, here's what I'm doing, as we're going through various parts of the, process. Those will be easy for me to have Ashley speak through that. And so we don't really need the grab of the text overlays or anything like that. 'Cause she'll just be talking about, you know, have you ever wanted to try and improve the dramatic effects of your photos? You know, and we'll work through the language and everything.
Oh, but you might need a typed out, dialogue basically.
Probably not. I think you've given me enough that I can come up with one.
Yeah.
And then we'll bounce it back and forth
Okay.
and make sure it's conveying what you want to convey for
Okay.
black and white SIG.
So Tom, what would you do? You would just take his audio and then copy that over and send it to your girlfriend?
No, actually what I do is type out what he says.
Okay.
And then basically the AI voice will take, a printed out script and speak it. And I paid $10 for her happy voice and everything. So if you've ever seen our club videos before, that's Ashley. That's the voice that we've been using as the AI generated voice.
That's a pretty decent voice too.
Yeah.
It doesn't come out off real tin-ear robot-y.
And then there's a story blocks, music track that, we used for all the videos up to this point. So we probably want to keep that in there for consistency, for the club video, but then you also have something that you can use for your SIG itself.
Well, yeah, just what I've got here.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you know, if you ever remodel this club again, you could ask that president, create an audio room. You could put it, remember we're gonna do storage room right there?
Yeah.
That would be a nice place to just create a little small audio room. Could be, but ask the president.
Well, we actually talked about doing a little audio box in this corner over here where it's, you know, soundproofed or things like that. So you can come in and do that. It didn't get much traction though at the time. But maybe the more we talk about doing narrations and everything for videos, the urge will present
Yeah.
itself.
You know, that closet where they have the water heater and all that. like
Right.
So that'd be a nice audio room, but.
Could be.
You know, so you get some circuit kicking
I think there's a
in.
bunch of them in there.
Well, that's what I was gonna say.
I think
The
there's
one
a
thing,
hum in there.
with all that electronic equipment operating, there might be a background hum
Yes.
to it.
You could almost use the storeroom.
Yeah, you could, almost.
I mean, there's enough stuff in different places that it might work as an audio room just the way it is.
You could, you know, there's a lot of stuff in there we don't really have to.
It doesn't,
You could
the
carve out
ceiling,
something there.
the wall doesn't go all the way
Yeah,
out. You
that's
get-
true.
Anything that goes on in the mat room would sound would carry into there.
Yeah.
It's not a great soundproof.
You could ask, Doug, is it Doug,
Oh, Doug Stinson?
to build one.
We just have to find the space here
Yeah,
to do
yeah.
something
It
like
doesn't have to
that.
be very big.
But the other thing is, Wendell and Joe brought his Yeti microphone in. Yeti now, which is part of Logitech, they have settings that you can set up your voice and it really eliminates the echoes and all kind of other things. Just speaking because the last, with my canoe video, I didn't go under the hood. I didn't go under the blanket because I was able to set the settings in the microphone to disregard background and echo and things like that. So it pretty much eliminated it, so.
Well, it might have been, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I was doing it off the laptop and I might have been in a different position for the front end part than I was for the rest of it.
I did notice that, there was a definite difference, it was slight, but you could tell that there was a difference in it. I thought your audio level for the music was really good,
Yeah,
for the audio.
Yeah, I didn't attempt to drop the music volume at each, excerpt of the narration.
Yeah.
I just tried to keep the music low enough and
Mhm.
talk over it. Which I do have a question about the music, but I have no idea. I'm sure the history of music is old, but it was recorded fairly recently. Does recording something now start another copyright cycle, or is it pretty much safe?
I don't have an answer to that. I know one of the things that I do with, and if there's some music that I think may be questionable and everything, I go to my YouTube channel and in my studio in YouTube, download it, and I'm like, okay, I just put one picture there. I'm not trying to do any video editing. Just put a picture there, put the music, and see if YouTube allows it. And if they allow it, then we seem
Well,
okay.
I guess, I don't know if you're putting this on YouTube, but would it kick it back?
If you go, yeah, if this goes off as part of the multimedia SIG presentation.
Yeah, it'll go to
Yeah, if
YouTube.
there's anything wrong with it.
Okay.
YouTube
You'll get a
let us know.
kickback on it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and then Kevin goes in and edits it and just takes it out since we can't, he can't put it on too.
I'm kind of thinking though, since you had the photo credits at the end,
Yeah,
you should be okay. I'm guessing.
I was wondering that, so with the other SIGs, are people listing credits and that at the end or
No,
just
because with Story Block, you don't have to
do that?
do credits and everything.
So are you
So that was
suggesting,
and that was one of the reasons we picked, Story Block music and everything based on Kevin's recommendations, because you don't have to waste time rolling credits at the end of a video. You can just focus it all on the club. So, so that was the thought behind that.
so are you saying you're gonna take the story block music and put it to?
Yeah.
Yeah.
oh, okay.
So
Yeah, and so what I can do is use the standard lead in and ending, that we have for the club. And then work this into the middle of it. That'll
Yeah.
be what Wendell's put together will be the guts of that particular segment.
I was just thinking out loud and something to consider, what is, to me, black and white photography is basically about contrast
Yeah.
and everything.
Shapes,
And I don't know if there's something in the beginning that you want to preface before you start getting into the slides saying, like, just something, about what it is about black and white photography that makes it, attractive, or things that you can do to it.
Yeah, things are written up to promote the club. I do talk about finding shapes and forms and patterns and contrasts.
Yeah,
If that isn't too long, I could add something.
yeah, I mean, I wouldn't think a whole lot, but maybe something just in the beginning, hey, if you're ever interested in converting one of your photos to black and white, and I would just pick a couple key things. I wouldn't get too detailed in it, but, about contrast or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Exposure.
Lines are more
Yeah.
important than the colors.
Yes,
A little bit of a sales pitch.
Yeah.
You allude to one part of it.
Yeah.
But I think if you said, why is it that black and white is still with us?
Hmm.
It's old, but it's new and it's, I mean, I know you did say something about it,
Yeah.
About one
Yeah,
sentence.
dramatic.
but I like that idea that you're suggesting of telling us, who doesn't like black and white?
there are people.
We won't let
We
them.
used to have a fellow in the club, he passed away a few years ago.
Well, let's see what.
Ron Pope, And if you mention black and white, he just started turning green.
Yeah.
He just,
But imagine that in a monochromatic, image.
he hated black, literally hated.
Well, I got a question, on these little videos that you're putting together for the website. Are there any on there now that I can watch?
Oh, yeah. Matter of fact, if you want, what we can do during the off week next week, I can bring in, the ones that we have for the club that we, basically the ones I've been showing at the, GVR showcase events to promote the club, and that'll kind of give you a feel for, what we've got so far. And like I said, before, the one aspect of the club that we're kind of shy on, are the SIGs. And so what I'm trying to do is come up with one that kind of promotes each of the SIGs and everything without getting too much into detail on them. But just to get people to go, oh, you guys do that, you know? And so, you know, the idea would be, like Wendell mentioned last week, you know, you get a more dramatic effect, particularly with landscapes, particularly with buildings, particularly with shapes, particularly with, photo or portrait, people shots. And so, and you show that in those three examples you use. So, so I think we've got the B-roll. I think we got the B-roll that we need. And I'll be able to work a header and a trailer behind it. As a matter of fact, if you could send me that,
Oh, look, text
or just your video,
Oh,
and then I'll be able to work through the header and trailer and maybe do a test version of yours, next week.
okay. Yeah, okay, well, I could add this new, description in front of black and white, I guess would be one, and then give Jamie that.
Either that or you can just put it in your email.
Oh.
Because again, actually it'll be your voice.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, now, it's going to be,
Do you have retransfer?
no, all right, you, well,
Oh, okay.
oh, I was saying, me,
Oh, okay. I'll just, that was say.
All righty. Well, thank you, Wendell. That was good
Good.
and everything. So next we have a video from Tom. Want to tell us about your video?
Well, I'm finally getting around to putting a lot of pictures and everything we've done on trips, recent trips.
Okay, Jeremiah is a bullfrog.
Yeah, that's not me. You know, I did a trip to San Diego in May and, went down to Balboa Park just to check. As many times as we've been there, we've never really been to Balboa Park other than the zoo. And, being an Air Force guy, you know, I saw an Aerospace Museum. And so this is a little short one on, the San Diego Aerospace Museum. Right.
All righty. Yep.
The only thing that I found distracting was the edges of the. Where you blurred out, but, go to a neutral or use the edges of the same photograph, that was just a little too confusing, like, great, we're.
Oh, okay. So maybe use a different.
Yeah, either a light gray or take the actual image and use that image for its edges.
Oh, okay,
To go out.
okay.
Look at the shoot of it. So when you use the phone, I think you don't fill up the screen, because
You can set your phone for a 16:9 format, which would fill up the screen.
yeah,
Oh, okay.
But he may take some of those vertically too, you still.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, no.
No, you're right on the
Gregory
vertical
taught
ones.
me, you know, this is the only way to take pictures. So,
great shots,
so,
great photos.
oh, thanks.
Yeah, the colors were just
Oh, yeah.
great.
Yeah, I was really impressed because if you notice, it's a round building.
Right.
And so what they got is, the kind of the outer layer, is where most of the exhibits are, but then you work your way in, there's a hall of fame that I didn't even touch on. And then right in the center is, basically a meeting hall. And that's where they had the F4, up on a pedestal and I was just impressed by the way they had the exhibits displayed, you know, so they put them in the context of the times, in a lot of cases.
I see where they don't have a Boeing space capsule yet.
Oh, they may try to get one from New Mexico. Yeah, and not all the aircraft they had on display are originals, like the Spirit of St. Louis, that's not it.
Right.
But
Apollo
it's,
9, or 11 capsule, I think is in the Smithsonian, not. I'm not sure.
actually, that one that they had on display with all the burn marks was the actual
Yeah,
capsule.
that looked original.
Yeah,
That was 9.
Looked like a.
yeah, that was
The
not
moon landing one was 11.
correct. Yeah, and that was,
But they had the letter from Neil Armstrong to insinuate that that was 11.
yeah. Yeah, and just seeing the letter from Lindbergh to
Yeah, that's pretty.
Neil Armstrong,
Pretty cool.
I mean, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And we didn't spend that much time there, you know, we tend to get a late start anywhere we go. And so I think we had maybe an hour, hour and a half.
So is
And so
there,
we just kind of, we were breezing through it, yeah.
is there any way on that letter from Lynn or to Neil Armstrong that you could, you know, Ken Burns it, so kind of scope in on it to see a little bit more of it?
I think so, yeah.
And I just
You know,
might
his
be,
handwriting's not the greatest in the world, so.
Yeah, but
it's
just-
okay, you know, you zoom
but I think
in.
that'd be kind of if, you know, while you, instead of just the static shot there and everything, just kind of slowly zooming in closer to the letter. The other thing, this is a technical thing, and it's all personal preference, like most of the things that we do, is that you drop shadowed some of your text, but not all your text.
Right, yeah.
And every, you know, so in my preference, I try to be consistent. If I'm drop shadowing it, I will do it for all the text in that particular video. Again, it's personal preference, what you want to do. But I think especially when you were up across, you know, for the World Wars or that second one that you had up there, that little drop shadow on it would help make it stand out a little better.
Okay, I'll do that.
Everything.
Thanks.
But that was interesting.
Yeah.
That was very nice.
It's the only air and space museum I've seen.
Yeah.
It's the only air and space museum I've ever been to that's under the flight path. Yeah.
Yeah.
Up at Andrew Airport. So I was like, oh, that's sweet. You know?
So a question about that. Do you know what frame rate you were shooting that at?
Probably the standard, 30 frames per second?
30 frames
Yeah.
and everything. Actually, you did a fairly good job capturing that going across the sky. And we did, one of the things that we often talk about here is when you do those vertical shots, how it's kind of jerky. And
Yeah, that was like the fifth one. Fortunately, there's a lot of aircraft traffic going into San Diego, so I was like, oh, that didn't work. Okay, 5 minutes, you know, there's another one. Actually, more like a minute and a half, there's an aircraft coming in, so.
yeah, no, nice job. Good job on that.
Can I get picky?
What's that?
Can I get picky even though Tom's sitting right behind
Sure,
you?
go ahead.
That's what we're all about.
When I see script, okay, 2 paragraphs, that's a lot of reading.
Yeah.
That is.
Got through half of it.
And
Yeah.
I'm thinking, if I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna first of all, certainly break it into 2 frames. But I'm gonna somehow, and I'm wondering, I've never seen this, but you know, it's like, okay, I respect that Tom liked the text. And I'm sure there's valuable stuff there. But I don't know if I knew that it was gonna be up there for 20 seconds. I just, you know, it's like,
You started
it's like
reading
I started,
earlier.
I started reading about 3 frames before.
Yeah,
No, I think that's too much.
yeah, no, I agree with you. I did not get through the whole thing. And the general rule of thumb that I've always heard here is go ahead and read that page of text and how much, and time yourself, and however long that is, double it and everything. The other thing that you could do with it, and I know Kevin dislikes this, but it's, you know, it's our video is our choice, is to scroll it. And you could just scroll it slowly. So then you would just be reading it.
And that proves that you're going to, I mean, that's what I was looking for. If there was a way to do that, in other words, if you start scrolling, then you get then we all would, all viewers would know that there's a good chance that you're going to be able to follow along.
Right.
You know, when I saw the text, I thought, am I going to be able to read all this?
Yeah.
Or is this just a picture of something, in which case it really doesn't have any value?
Right.
Or you could narrate it, have your girlfriend narrate it, just go in on it and start, shoot the image. Leave it up for 2 or 3 seconds for people and have her start reading what's there and then just go on and let her continue to read and go on to other stuff.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because actually that was my least favorite part of the whole video. When I put it together and it's like, yeah, it was an interesting story, but you know, doing the pan from top to bottom and everything where people know, oh, I'm supposed to be reading this would really be helpful. Either that or I take that whole thing out and throw in a display case of Amelia Earhart. But, which is really more interesting, but the problem is there's so much reflective stuff.
Right.
You know, I was seeing myself in the image, and it's like,
Oh, yeah.
you know, so, but I may just insert some different images and everything, from the museum in that spot.
I think one thing you should do is put that at the end, and everyone knows this is the end of the video, and there's gonna be plenty of time to read that, because, you know, it's not gonna be fade away or anything.
Oh, okay. Well, I think the value added is probably not there.
Oh, no, not worth
If
that.
I go back, then what I'd like to do is maybe do the narration and everything, and do a segment on wicker chairs in airplanes and have the, actually show the wicker chairs that they were using back in the day. Like I say, there's so much there, and we had so little time, it's like, oh, cracky. Because they have, the inner workings of, prop engines and some of the ones that they had in the World War II fighters, and it's like, it's amazing, how some of those piston-driven engines work. And, but they have cutaways and docents there that'll take time to explain, here's what you're seeing.
Oh, that's cool.
So, I mean,
Getting them, on video would be interesting.
oh, absolutely, yeah. So it's a target-rich environment if you ever get out to San Diego.
Thank you, I do hope to.
One of the things that I found works for me when I get into places that are in glass cases is I literally put my lens all the way up to the glass. I don't leave any room between myself or my camera and the glass, and that pretty much eliminates any reflection or glare that we have.
And they do make, like a foam rubber thing, filter that screws into the front of the lens that can put up
That you
against
can.
it, that helps. They're not very expensive.
Yeah, I'm cheap. I just put my lens up against it.
Yeah. It works,
It works.
yeah.
It eliminates most of it. All right. Well, that was good. I have one other video here. This is actually one of the videos that I did a few years ago. I look at it, I'm like, oh my God, look at that, look at that, look at that. But this is when I was still using Adobe Premiere Elements. This is before I switched to DaVinci. This was, I forget what year this was before COVID. So would that have to be like 2018, 2000?
About 3 years
Or
ago.
2019.
Yeah. So we had the Green Valley Film Festival that was orchestrated out of the club, and people submitted, and there was a panel of judges, and they determined which ones. I didn't win anything, but I got into the film festival. So this was the submission into the film festival. When I look at it today, I'm like, they were just being kind.
You wouldn't let it in today?
I'm like, yeah, but part of it is, of course, I'm much more knowledgeable about the different things and how to do things. DaVinci does a lot more, gives a lot more options than what I found in Premiere Elements back then. Again, so I think it was Premiere Elements 2017 that I had at the time. So, of course, they upgraded every year and make changes, and a lot of changes between, 2017 and 2024
Yeah.
and everything. So, this video is when I was in Germany and went to a town called Rothenburg. Is anyone familiar with this town?
We saw
I've
that,
been there, but
It's one of the towns that still is a medieval town. It's completely surrounded by wall. An interesting story that was told. We did a night watchman walk through the town, which was, the guy was great. I mean, this is one of the better ghost walk. It wasn't a ghost walk, but just walking around the town. I mean, he had the cape on and everything, carrying the lantern and telling stories. One of the stories he told was that as getting towards the end of World War II, and the American forces were, pushing into Germany, the high command was like, just wipe everything off the face of the earth. Well, this particular commander, his parents had visited Rothenburg back in the early 1900s, and there was a painting on the wall of this walled city and everything. And he always really thought that was beautiful. So he was given the command to literally destroy this town, and he just couldn't bring himself to it. So he sent an envoy to try to meet with the German command, in charge of who was there, holed up in the city. And they said, we don't want to destroy this town. If you stay here, we're going to have to, but if you leave, we won't do that. And the Germans left. And so then the town got saved. and everything. So one of the things they have in this, and the video is not even on the town, it is on the Medieval Torture Museum. And it doesn't even show half of what they showed. And I was having the same issue back then as Tom was talking about reflection and everything. I still figuring all that stuff out, trying to get the reflection out of the glass because many of these torture devices were behind glass cases and everything. So
as we enter Rothenburg through the guide and tour gate, we walk through the picturesque town to the Museum of Crime and Punishment. If you were lucky enough, you would be brought to the magistrate's office, where you would be placed in a pillory. This was for minor offenses, and there were many. You could be a bad baker, a bad plumber, a bad musician, a bad candlestick maker, whatever your profession was. You would be shamed and punished by the townspeople. There were many excuses one could use to place a person in a dunk cage. Just claim it to the magistrate. During medieval times, Germany was a Christian region with strong ties to the Roman Catholic Church. Hearsay was often a cause for torture, along with unwed childbirth, homosexuality, and belief you were a witch. If that didn't bring a confession, well, maybe the hand iron would. Smashing their fingers or knees or bodies seemed like a logical way to bring a confession. Jingle bell shoes were used if you were convicted of being a thief. You would be bound to a pair of metal shoes with bells on them. That way, everyone would know when a thief was out and about in the town. Did you ever hear the phrase, "I wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole"? 10-foot poles with neck clasps and spikes on them were used to keep witches away, so their spells couldn't affect their captures. Liar, liar, pants on fire. Shame masks were intended to silence wagging tongues and offensive behavior. Unfortunately, it was used on women who spoke their minds to their husbands instead of being subservient like the Bible demanded, or on women accused of being witches or gossips. The masks were usually fashioned of iron, with features that often displayed the wearer's offense, like big ears and a long tongue for accusations of being nosy and gossipy, or bells to warn the public that a scold was approaching. You could have been a bad musician and had to wear a collar with a built-in flute. Once warned, the public often took part in beating and humiliating the wearer. A person convicted of public intoxication was made to wear the drunkard's cloak, a barrel with holes cut out for the head and arms. The accused was made to walk around town in an attempt to sober them up and face public humiliation. Naked prisoners were seated on the iron chair in such a position that at the slightest movement, hundreds of sharp spikes would stick in their skin. The rack was a wooden platform with rollers at both ends. The victim's hands and feet were tied to each end, and the rollers would be turned, stretching the victim's body to uncomfortable lengths. The wheel was used to torture and kill prisoners for public executions. The victim would be left on the wheel to die or could be placed on top of a tall pole so birds could feed on their flesh while they were still alive. The Iron Maiden had double doors on it to place the victim inside. One door had 8 spikes on it, the other 13 spikes. The spikes were strategically placed to pierce several organs so the victim would bleed to death. While shaming and torture were common forms of punishment during medieval times, you could escape any of those if you made friends with the night watchman and had something he wanted in exchange. He would escort you to the back gate, open the door, and let you escape to freedom. The last thing you would see was the tower behind you as you made your way out of the city.
I think I would not have the music at all, because I think your narration was good enough that without any distracting sound.
Just think it was too loud.
A little bit,
Well, oh yeah, I wouldn't even have it. I would just have the narration.
or way down.
But
Yeah.
first,
Thank you. Yeah, it was,
Awful. Yeah, really.
my gosh, can't imagine. I mean, all you had to do was go to the magistrate and say, hey, Ron's a great lousy photographer and everything, and he would be shamed and punished. I mean, it was just word of mouth or who you were friends with, with what happened. But it was,
There was some pretty lousy torture.
yes, there were.
Was theirs like the worst that people have found, or was that typical for that era?
My understanding that was typical of that era. Every day. So pretty gruesome.
Yeah.
Glad things have changed somewhat. We just get tortured in different ways today.
Speaking of the music, it was rather delightful music
Yeah.
for such a gruesome.
That's interesting. Yeah.
And I was going to say, that reminds me of Tom's music. We didn't discuss Tom's music, and I rather liked it. I realized that it was almost, I don't want to say warlike, but it
was
Like action like?
War section,
well, it felt, yeah, I mean,
the dramatic.
yeah, it felt like, thought it was appropriate. I was going to ask you, how you ever figured that out?
Usually what I do, because everybody talks about the importance of music, is I'll be thinking about, okay, I want to do a video on blah. I'll actually go through and pick out the music first. And think, okay, this music piece fits these images and everything, or this part of the story. And kind of go with that. So like with war images, it was like, okay, I need to have something dramatic in there. Just kind of emphasizes, these are warcraft.
I thought your music was good too.
but, yeah, it was, I think that was pretty quiet, steady music.
I'd like to ask something about music. I'm putting together a particularly boring, certainly otherwise boring, video. I don't know that I'll even bring it in. But I have it has one person who it is dedicated, or will be dedicated to. And here's my question. Starting out, it's regular speed. And then perhaps second half of it, or the back end of it, it's all 4 times the speed. Okay. So I'm thinking to myself, the music that works in one part isn't likely to work in the other part, or is it? Does it
I
make
think
any-
it depends on, if you are transitioning from like one chapter to another chapter,
It's not that sophisticated. It's
then
it's just some furniture being moved, being delivered. And you think 2 songs? I was wondering about that.
2 songs are like, one of the things I do on Pixabay is, so if my video is like between 4 and 8 minutes, I click on there in the duration, and then I kind of know how long my video is. And then I start eliminating, and I'm like, okay, so let's say my video is 4 minutes long and this song is 5 minutes long. I mean, one of the things on my canoe video is, as I kind of change chapters, or I was changing shots, I didn't want the music to change in the middle of a shot. So I would just ramp it down and then bring in the next song and start bringing it back up.
This is not even 2 minutes long.
still wouldn't hurt to have two.
Okay,
Two songs, I mean, you could do two partial songs.
yeah,
Um,
Are there lyrics to the songs?
If it's like moving furniture in regular speed and then all of a sudden you just speeded it up to. You know, do the really quick walk kind of thing that you saw on the
Yeah,
old
yeah.
time video.
Right, right.
You know, you put Flight of the Bumblebee or something like that, you know. Just, but the first part of it is what your normal thing is, and then all of a sudden, you just take your music down and fade the other one
You're
up.
giving me good ideas. This is good.
The other thing, I think this is on Pixabay, you could pick how many beats you want per second or
Frame.
yeah, and everything. So, and then it'll bring up music that just is, so let's just say you're showing a different clip every 4 seconds. You can have something where the beat is every 4 seconds. Something like that
I've never used that. It's on Pixabay.
I've used it a couple times, but I can't remember if it's on Pixabay.
That's the next option.
It is, I mean, because depending on, whether, you brought up a good point where that is rather, jovial music and everything to pretty macabre, video or so to speak, or, subject matter and everything, maybe you needed more like chamber music, like Phantom of the Opera, something like that might have been better suited for it and everything. But that was a good idea, though. I have this video saved because I have a file that I just save all my final videos in, but then I have another file that I save the whole production in. So I'll move the whole DaVinci file into there. But this was Photoshop Premiere Elements, and I couldn't find anything. It's not had that mindset back then. The video's done. I'm like, okay, done with this one. I don't need that, get rid of all that stuff and everything. So because when I saw this for a fleeting moment, I was like, oh, I could go change this. I was going to change that, but I'm not going to change anything. It is what it is.
Yeah.
It's done. So if I did change anything, I think the music might be.
I was playing around with my grandson's keyboard, and they come with songs, but then also the more modern ones now, you can put a song in, and you can do tempo.
Yeah.
Tempo, slower, tempo faster. So you can take one song and it'll still be the song, but this will be a slow speed and that will be a fast speed if you want.
What was it?
Those keyboards they have, and then, they've got songs that have already been put in, but now you can also put your own song.
Oh, wow.
And you just push the little button and make it slower, or push that other side, make it faster.
Has anybody ever done GarageBand on Apple?
I've never been able to figure it out. But,
Never tried it.
Me either.
No, I'm trying to. But the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame on the 3rd floor, they have a garage set up that you can go in and pick up instruments and just start playing.
Oh,
People do,
yeah.
just start jamming
Oh,
and everything. So. All righty, anything else? Any other?
Just a comment, your video was great on torture, and I was thinking, well, what is today's torture? It's all the political TV ads.
That's for sure. That's for sure. It is torture. I just hit mute.
That would be great to do, just the ads that show up, and no audio. Play tubular bells behind that.
Yeah. There's something I have Dish is my TV provider, and most of the stuff I watch on there I record and then go back and watch it because I can just fast forward then through the commercials. But just here within the last couple of months, they've offered something where the little kangaroo hops up and says, do you want to skip ads? And I say yes, and it automatically, as soon as the ad starts, it might play 2 or 3 seconds, then it goes through all the ads and goes, so I don't even have to press my button to fast forward through and everything.
I've seen that and I haven't quite, I don't know what it's I don't know if that's for anything you've recorded or if it's something specific.
For some reason, it doesn't come up with everything I've recorded.
That's what I'm,
So I don't know, I'm like a little boy on Christmas morning, every time it opens up, I'm like, yeah, just instead of me sitting here going, 30, because it's in 30-second increments, it advances.
I couldn't figure out why they would be giving us something that we would like. For free.
For free.
Yeah, for free.
That might be. And just one last thing, I don't know if anyone else did this, I went to see Beetlejuice over the weekend at the theater. I thought it was outstanding. I thought the cinematography, the acting, the screenplay, I wasn't sure what to expect. I like the original Beetlejuice. They did an outstanding job with this Beetlejuice. The one thing I did go, so I like to go to the Cinemax theaters up off of I-10, and so we went to the one that was high definition, for both audio and video and everything. That theater's, in my opinion, is not big enough for that. I thought, and I sit the last row. I always sit. If I can't get the last row, I don't go to the movie. I used to have, before being able to buy tickets in advance, I'd get there like an hour early just so I could get in the last row and be right in the middle. And Sally, on our way home, she said there were times she said it hurt my eyes because the screen is high definition and so large there that it's just, and the theater, in my opinion, needs to be large. Just like, you see them advertising 75-inch TVs now for like less than $1,000. Well, that's all well and good, and you can probably get good quality image on everything, but you got to sit back from it. Sally said, even though we were sitting in the last row, she said, I felt like we were sitting in the first row watching this movie. So I'm going to do a little bit of research to see if other HD screens in the Tucson area, if any of the theaters themselves are larger, that you'd be able to sit back a little bit further. But it was good. It was good. It was
Still confusing to me at first who was who. But that movie was done really well.
Yeah, well, just to refresh my memory, on Netflix on Saturday night, I watched the original. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I didn't remember that. Oh, I didn't remember
It was really strange at the time when it first came out. It's like, whoa.
that. Yeah.
Michael Keaton, what a role.
I think that's one of his premier roles. I mean, he really did an outstanding job and did just as well with this for someone who's 73 years old. So.
I know it's not a big deal, but I don't know how the conversation ever started, but I was at Costco and I asked one of the veteran guys on the floor, a manager, said, what do you ever get for comebacks here? He said, TV sets. He said, people are in here and it's such a vast area that they get the set home and it's too big. And you just hit it.
Yeah.
You said it.
Yeah.
You have the size of the screen has to fit the room that you're viewing it in.
Either that or put on an addition.
Yeah.
You could sit outside and have the TV.
Well, thank you all for coming. I appreciate it. Sorry for my couple little mess ups here, but if I did mess up at least once, it wouldn't be me.
I love the torture chamber. I love the torture.
Yeah.
If you're ever
I've
there,
heard anyone say that before.
I'm sorry.
I love the torture chamber.
Oh, my God.
if you're ever there in Rothenburg, check. You got to check it out and do the night watchman walk. I mean, did you see the picture of the night watchman? I mean, he did a phenomenal job walking around and using his voice and telling the stories. And of course, it's nighttime and walking around with a lantern and telling all the little stories of Rothenburg and everything. So, well, glad you enjoyed it and everything. So, thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Good time.